The house still breathes the rhythm of their arguments. It's in the clicking of the heater, the hum that never stops, the aftertaste of words meant to shape her into something tougher, quieter, less trembling. They told her worry was a choice, fear a performance, softness a flaw. But now the world has inverted itself. She is the calm one, and they are breaking apart beneath the same shadows they once mocked. She sits alone at the kitchen table, the candle's small flame trembling like her pulse. Outside, fog presses against the window, thick as memory. She can almost hear her father's laughter, her mother's sharp sigh, stitched into the wallpaper. The air tastes like old salt and withheld forgiveness. And in the silence, she wonders whether love is truly what saves people or merely what refuses to leave when everything else does. Morning arrives muted and cold. The fog has thinned but left behind its chill, seeping into her coat and bones. Mara walks the path toward the clinic, gravel crunching under her boots. The building stands ahead, its glass walls reflecting a pale sky. This place, her sanctuary, her proof that she was never weak, is now where her parents wait. She built it for those who couldn't quiet their storms, never imagining she'd watch her own family unravel inside its walls. The irony doesn't feel sweet. It feels heavy, like breath held too long. The therapy room smells faintly of antiseptic and coffee. David sits with his hands folded, jaw locked. Elise stares through the blinds, eyes red but dry. Between them, the air hums with years of unspoken words. Mara wants to speak clinically, measured, detached, but her voice trembles against old hurt. Every sentence she's ever swallowed rises like salt water. She tries to breathe, to anchor herself in professionalism, but all she can hear is the echo of her mother's laughter. Years ago. You just like attention. The clinic empties slowly, voices fading into the sea wind outside. Mara lingers by the window, watching dusk gather. Her mother had tried to apologize, words catching on old shame. Her father had said nothing at all. She presses her forehead against the glass and exhales. For years, she dreamed of this moment. Vindication, recognition. But all she feels is exhaustion. Healing, she realizes, doesn't look like triumph. It looks like showing up again tomorrow. Night settles deep and slow. Mara sits cross-legged on her apartment floor, the single candle burning low beside her. Her phone buzzes once, her mother's name, then goes still. She lets it ring out, staring into the flame until her eyes blur. For the first time, her pulse feels steady. The tide murmurs beyond the walls, endless, indifferent. She closes her eyes and lets the silence fill her ribs, no longer afraid of it. Some part of her, quiet and new, begins to breathe again. The days fall into rhythm. Mornings of sterile quiet, afternoons of tremors beneath calm. Mara's parents return for therapy. Punctual, fragile, polite. David's hand sometimes shakes when he signs his name. Elise brings notebooks filled with phrases she can't say aloud. Mara watches them from a distance, her empathy trained like a muscle. Professional, not personal. But something inside her wavers each time she sees her father hesitate before the door, or her mother clutch her coat as if bracing for punishment. The clinic's walls are meant to hold pain, not reflect it. Yet in their faces she sees her own. The child who once begged to be believed. Healing others has never felt so much like reopening herself. David's diagnosis arrives like a quiet confession. Early cognitive decline, memory faltering in unpredictable ways. Mara listens as another doctor explains what this means, her own training useless against the sting of the word irreversible. Elise sits beside him, back straight, lips trembling only once. For years, Mara's pain was invisible. Now her father's decline is undeniable. And somehow, that doesn't bring satisfaction. It brings fear. The same man who mocked her panic now forgets his own sentences, stares at her, as though seeing her for the first time. She wonders if forgiveness can begin when memory itself starts to fade. The storm comes in mid-afternoon. Rain lashes against the clinic windows, the kind that turns everything ghostly and gray. Mara leads a support group while thunder rolls like old grudges above them. Across the room, Elise listens but doesn't speak. Her eyes are glassy, her fingers restless. When the session ends, she lingers. "I didn't understand," she whispers. The words tremble, foreign and unfinished. Mara nods once, unable to answer. It's not forgiveness that fills the air, just the quiet recognition of what was lost when cruelty disguised itself as love. Outside, lightning flashes white, and for a second, the whole room looks erased. That night, Mara drives her father home through relentless rain. He hums a tune she doesn't recognize, voice drifting in and out. The wipers beat like anxious hearts. At a red light, he turns to her, eyes soft but empty. "You used to worry too much," he murmurs, almost gently. Then quieter. "I think I understand now." The words break something open in her chest. Not triumph, not closure, but the fragile ache of being seen too late. She grips the wheel tighter. Outside, the rain erases the road, and she drives by instinct, following the thin shimmer of headlights through darkness. Later, Mara returns to the empty clinic. The air smells faintly of disinfectant and salt carried in through the vents. She walks the hall alone, her footsteps echoing where laughter and tears have passed. She stops by her office door, looks at the chair where her parents sat earlier, and breathes. The room feels lighter now, not because it's healed, but because it no longer hides. She switches off the lights one by one, her reflection dissolving into the dark glass. The sea outside continues its rhythm, unbothered, eternal. For the first time, she doesn't need to control the tide. She only needs to stand in its sound and let it carry her. Weeks pass like a tide that doesn't notice the shore it's reshaping. Mara's patients come and go. Young teachers, widowers, teenagers too quiet for their years. She listens, she steadies, she teaches breathing that works most of the time. But inside, her thoughts circle the same coastline. Her parents, their house, the childhood she keeps revisiting through other people's confessions. Healing others has started to feel like building a bridge from pieces of her own wreckage. Every story reminds her of herself. Panic buried under politeness, sorrow disguised as strength. And yet, for the first time, she doesn't flinch from it. Maybe healing isn't an arrival, but a return that no longer hurts. Elise begins to attend group therapy regularly. She brings tea for others, arranges chairs, smiles too brightly. But beneath the performance, Mara sees fatigue settling into her mother's gestures. The slow weight of someone trying to unlearn cruelty she mistook for love. During one session, Elise speaks about shame without naming herself. Mara listens from across the circle, heart aching with the familiar cadence of words once used against her. Their eyes meet only once, but it's enough. Something unspoken passes between them, like a scar brushing another scar in quiet recognition. David forgets more now. He calls Mara by her mother's name, stares at walls as though listening to something she can't hear. During visits, he hums old songs she can't remember, but that somehow loosen the air between them. She brings him to the therapy garden. Lavender, rosemary, ocean wind, hoping the scent anchors him. When he laughs, it's sudden, full-bodied, startlingly warm. For a moment, he's the father from a photograph, before the cynicism, before the disbelief. She sits beside him and lets the silence stretch. Memory, she realizes, is both cruel and kind. It erases pain and connection alike, leaving behind something simpler: presence. One afternoon, a teenage patient named Lila tells Mara she wants to disappear. The words strike with the same rhythm as her own once did years ago, when no one listened. Mara's hands tremble beneath the desk. She steadies them before the girl notices. voice soft but certain. "You don't need to disappear," she says. "You just need to be believed." When Lila begins to cry, something inside Mara unknots. She understands now. The clinic wasn't built to save her parents or even herself. It was built for the versions of people they never learned to see. The ones who need to know they weren't weak for feeling deeply. That night, Mara walks along the beach behind the clinic. The tide is low, sand scattered with kelp and fragments of driftwood. Her shoes sink slightly as she walks. The sky is the color of steel. Waves murmur like half-remembered apologies. She thinks about her parents, her father's fading mind, her mother's trembling voice. There's no final forgiveness waiting. No cinematic closure, just the soft truth that hurt and love can live in the same body. She stops, breathes, lets the cold, salt air sting her lungs. The sea keeps moving. So does she. The mornings come colder. Now, David no longer remembers which door leads to his room. Sometimes he calls the clinic home. Sometimes he calls it that quiet place by the sea. Mara moves through the halls like a ghost. Her clipboard a shield, she clutches harder than she should. Each morning, Elise waits near the lobby window, asking the same question. Will he get better? The answer never changes, but Mara can't bring herself to say it out loud anymore. Instead, she adjusts her mother's scarf, guides her into the therapy room, and pretends that the small rituals matter, that they anchor them all in something steadier than fear. The medical report arrives mid-afternoon. It sits unopened on Mara's desk while the world outside shifts into mist. She knows what it says: progressive, incurable, inevitable. Her pulse ticks in her throat, a drumbeat of everything she can't fix. Across the hall, she hears her mother crying behind a closed door. The sound feels distant, almost unreal. Mara wants to go to her, but she doesn't move. Instead, she stares at the report, then at her trembling hands, and feels the sharp return of old panic. The irony is unbearable. The founder of a mental health clinic losing her breath in her own office. That evening, Elise appears at Mara's apartment door, soaked from rain. She looks smaller than Mara remembers, less sharp, more breakable. She holds an old photo, edges curled, of Mara as a child clutching a seashell. He used to hold her like that. Elise whispers, before he stopped trying. They sit in silence. For years, Mara imagined that one apology could repair everything. Now she sees that grief doesn't negotiate. It only softens. Her mother begins to cry, quiet and uneven. Mara doesn't know how to comfort her. She only reaches out, lets their hands meet, and stays. Sometimes, that's all that love can do. David's memory fractures completely the following week. He no longer recognizes his wife. Sometimes he mistakes a nurse for Mara and thanks her for coming home. She stands in the doorway, her throat burning. Every time he forgets her, the ache renews, sharp, familiar, humbling. But something else emerges too. Tenderness stripped of history. She feeds him soup, listens to him, hum off key. When he falls asleep, she brushes his hair back gently, like she once wished he'd done for her. Love, she realizes, isn't always built on memory. Sometimes it's built on the quiet persistence of care, even when no one remembers why it matters. Late that night, Mara walks through the clinic's empty corridors. The fluorescent lights hum like old memories. In each window reflection, she sees a different version of herself. The frightened child, the relentless student, the tired woman trying to keep others from drowning. She stops at her father's door, watches him sleep, then looks toward the sea through the glass. The fog is lifting, the waves faintly luminous. For the first time, she whispers goodnight without resentment. It doesn't erase the past, but it settles something inside her, small and true. Outside, the horizon lightens, a fragile promise that morning will come again. The air in the clinic shifts before it happens, like a pressure change before a rain. Elise snaps during a therapy session, her grief twisting into something sharp. "You think you're better than us now," she spits, voice trembling between anger and heartbreak. The words strike Mara like an echo from years ago. She stands still, every instinct urging calm, but her voice shakes anyway. "No," she says quietly. "I just stopped pretending." The silence that follows feels like glass cracking in slow motion. There's no victory in it, only exhaustion. Elise looks away, face breaking open. For a moment, both women seem to age 10 years, caught between blame and recognition. Later that day, the clinic feels colder. Patients' laughter echoes faintly from the waiting area, but Mara can't focus. She replays her mother's words in her mind until they dissolve into rhythm. She walks outside into the wind, down toward the bluff. The sea is restless, foaming white against black stone. She feels something cracking inside her chest. Not rage, not sorrow, but the sudden understanding that she has built her life trying to prove she was worth listening to. And now, faced with her mother's fragility, she no longer needs to prove anything. The wind tears through her coat, sharp and cleansing. She exhales and lets it take the weight of the past with it. That evening, Elise comes to find her. The argument lingers between them like fog. Visible, ungraspable. They walk along the beach without speaking until Elise finally says, "I didn't know how to love you when you were scared." The words hang trembling in the salt air. Mara stops, her throat thick. "You didn't have to fix me," she says softly. "You just had to believe me." Elise nods, her face wet with tears she doesn't hide this time. The sea roars louder, carrying their silence like prayer. Two women bound by blood and regret, finally letting the noise between them dissolve into something quieter. Truth. When they return, David is gone, slipped quietly in his sleep sometime between dusk and midnight. The nurses' voices are hushed, the monitors already still. Elise sinks into the chair beside his bed, holding his cooling hand, whispering something no one can hear. Mara stands at the door, motionless. There's no outcry, no cinematic breakdown, just the hollow silence that follows love's last task. She walks to the window, looks out at the sea, and realizes she isn't shaking. The panic that once ruled her is gone. Grief fills the space it left, but it feels bearable, almost sacred. The funeral is small. Just sea, wind, flowers, and the faint hum of an old hymn. Mara watches the waves beyond the cemetery fence, feeling both heavy and clean. Her mother stands beside her, face pale, eyes steady. They don't speak. They don't need to. For the first time, Mara isn't afraid of silence. It feels like space, not punishment. As they turn to leave, the clouds break open and sunlight glances across the headstone, a brief shimmer before the fog returns. She knows healing isn't a finish line. It's the quiet act of walking forward, again and again, without running from what still hurts. The house feels heavier without him. Elise moves through it like someone relearning how to breathe, tidying shelves, folding blankets, leaving teacups half full. Mara visits every few days, bringing groceries, fixing small things that don't need fixing. The silence between them has changed. It no longer hurts, but it isn't soft either. It's a space they both keep open, cautious and real. One evening, Mara finds her mother asleep in the armchair, her hand resting on an open book. For the first time in years, she feels something like tenderness, without bitterness attached. The grief is still here, but it no longer commands her. It simply lives beside her, quiet and human. Back at the clinic, Mara takes down her father's file. She reads his handwriting, uneven and fading, his last notes from treatment. One line catches her breath. "I wish I'd listened sooner." The ink bleeds slightly where his hand must have trembled. She presses her thumb to the page, not to erase it but to feel its texture. The small proof that he once tried. The file smells faintly of paper and disinfectant, but also of something familiar. Sea salt, perhaps, or grief made ordinary. She slips it back into the cabinet and exhales. The work continues as it always has, but her pulse no longer trembles beneath it. Elise begins volunteering at the clinic. Quiet tasks, sorting forms, arranging flowers in the waiting room. Sometimes she and Mara share coffee between appointments, speaking about nothing important. Their laughter is hesitant at first, then steady. One morning, a patient thanks Elise for her kindness, and Mara sees something loosen in her mother's eyes. A release, maybe, or redemption disguised as purpose. Watching her, Mara realizes that change doesn't announce itself. It accumulates in small mercies, in the way hands tremble less when held. The old cycle has ended, not with apologies, but with gentleness taking root where cruelty once lived. On a rare, clear day, Mara drives her mother to the cliffs. The sky stretches open, the air sharp with salt. They sit on a bench overlooking the sea, thermoses of tea warming their palms. They talk about small things, recipes, the neighbor's dog, the gulls that never stop crying. The conversation drifts, easy and unforced. Elise reaches over, touches her daughter's sleeve. "You were always stronger than I knew," she says. Mara doesn't answer. She only squeezes her hand back. Strength, she thinks, was never the absence of fear. It was learning to live inside it without breaking. That night, alone, Mara lights a candle in her apartment, the same kind she used to steady her breathing years ago. The flame flickers softly, steady this time. She looks around. The room, the quiet, the pulse of the sea beyond the window. Her phone buzzes. Elise's message, "Good night, sweetheart." She smiles, places the phone down, and watches the flames sway. Everything that hurt has become part of the air now, unavoidable, but no longer suffocating. She closes her eyes and breathes in, slow and sure, the sound of waves rising and falling like a promise. Morning drifts softly through the fog, dissolving the clinic's outline into pale light. Mara walks the hallway with her coffee, each door she passes whispering its own small history. The building feels different now, less like armor, more like breath. Patients' laughter filters through thin walls, a tender hum that doesn't sting anymore. In her office, she stands by the window and looks toward the ocean, calm after a night of storms. She thinks about her parents, their cruelty, their fragility, their impossible humanness, and realizes forgiveness has already happened. Quietly, without ceremony. It came disguised as ordinary days that didn't hurt to live through. Later that afternoon, Elise joins her for lunch in the staff kitchen. They eat soup together, seated across from each other. Laughter easy now, unforced. Elise folds napkins absent-mindedly, a habit from old dinner tables, and Mara lets it pass without judgment. They talk about new furniture for the lobby, about maybe repainting the waiting room a softer color. Small things, life-sized things. The weight between them has thinned to something livable. Every word they share now is an act of repair, quiet as stitches in fabric that once tore. In this ordinariness, love finds its truest form. A new patient arrives, a young man with shaking hands, eyes darting toward every sound. Mara guides him into her office, the same way she once wished someone had guided her. She listens as he talks about fear, the kind that comes for no reason. She nods, steady and calm, voice low and sure. "It's okay," she says. "You're safe here." As he exhales, she realizes the words aren't just for him. They're for the girl she used to be, terrified and unseen. Healing, she thinks, is circular. What we give to others eventually finds its way back to us. As evening settles, Mara walks along the bluff. The sea stretches infinite, wind cool against her skin. The sky, once gray, glows faintly rose gold where the sun folds into water. She closes her eyes and hears everything. The tide, the gulls, the distant hum of life she's helped hold together. For the first time, she doesn't feel the need to escape or explain. Her anxiety still lingers, soft but manageable, like a companion rather than a cage. The horizon blurs, steady and endless. She breathes in, and the world breathes with her. Night again. The clinic glows faintly behind her apartment window. Inside, the candle burns, the same one from years ago, the same flame reborn. Mara sits beside it, notebook open, pen moving slowly. She writes, "Sometimes, love fails at first. Sometimes it returns." She closes the book, looks toward the sea, and smiles. The waves crash, constant and forgiving. In the sound, she hears her father's voice humming, her mother's laughter softened, her own breath steady at last. The past hasn't disappeared. It simply learned how to live beside her. And that, she finally understands, is what healing means.